Welcome. We're back, and we're going to, this is our Afterthoughts segment that's only seen on the web. This is where we have a little more time with our guest. Today, we are speaking with Matt Kearns, the Vice President of Business Development for First Wind. We've asked Matt to stick around and have a little more time for our Afterthoughts extended conversation. So thank you for sticking around.
First of all,
we had a good session, that was broadcast, but I wanted to follow up on a few more of the more, kind of, I guess, technical parts. One thing I wanted to ask about is, tell me more about, now you've got this out in front of you, which is great, about the economic impact. I know you guys are really trying to look at that, and it's part of the sales, too. Hey, we're here, we're creating jobs and creating a stimulus to the economy. Talk more about that.
Well, it's important to me. I think in terms of our business plan, we want to think about not just job creation, but total economic impact in the state. So we have choices, certainly, in terms of the contractors we use. There's lots of national competition. But part of what we've been doing as a company is working with Maine companies. And so, for example, Reed & Reed, they had never touched a wind turbine until we hired them to build Mars Hill. So folks who had done rigging,
and now they're the leader in
the leader in the Northeast. That's exactly right.
And so, in fact, have spun off a whole new division for that.
Exactly. So we've seen tremendous growth from Maine businesses, and they're showing real leadership. And now they're getting hired out of state, which to me is the perfect, is a really good model. So grow the expertise in state. I mean, we now have within state, in the state of Maine, we have a vertically integrated kind of powerhouse for serving the wind industry. That's pretty impressive. From going from commissioning of the Mars Hill project in 2007, 2 years later, that's a pretty steep curve.
It really is amazing. We did have Jack Parker from Reed on, and folks from Stantec and the Maine Composite Alliance on our other segment today, and they talk about that in terms of it's only been 4 years, really. Think about it, and a lot of movements happen. But there's some risk involved with that too. So let me ask you about that. The kind of the capital requirements. I mean, how much money are you investing?
Well, a lot. I mean, they've got a lot happening, and it's clearly the biggest risk is buying turbines, and it requires a lot of capital to do that.
What are you buying?
So, well, where? Well, we've got GE machines, and we've got some other units that we've looked at, but you have to kind of do that at a time when you don't always have your permit yet. So there's some risks around that for sure. So it's an important. We're taking a very long view.
Okay, and you did receive federal stimulus funds, correct?
Yes, that's
Talk
correct.
about that. What the process was.
Honored.
$40 million.
Absolutely honored to be a part of that, and that allows us to do lots of other things as a company. We took a very big bet on Maine early on, and I think the stimulus funds allowed us to do some projects that we might not have otherwise done.
Good. So you feel in a good, strong position going forward. The stimulus funds help. I guess the other thing is, in terms of the impact on the state, the long term, once these are built, what's going to be the long-term kind of impact on jobs? Do you have any idea?
Well,
any projections?
I don't have any projections.
And you mentioned earlier when we were talking that you and Charlie Colgan are...
we are working with the University of Southern Maine. So the goal here is to really mine the data that we've already got and take a hard look at what is the total economic impact of what we've done. I mean, for example, Stetson, $65 million. It's a 57 megawatt project, relative, sort of mid-sized wind project, decent size for New England. But and we spent a total of $65 million on balance of plant and construction and engineering, $50 million on Maine contractors. So take $50 million and use the basic rule of 4 times for every dollar that's in capital that's spent. That can cycle 4 times through the economy. So, and I think that's what we want to mine, is take a hard look, and not just the total numbers, but what businesses. And when we look at the details of the information, it's pretty interesting. And there's a lot of small businesses that benefit locally, and these are folks that don't always get a ton of opportunities. So we're really proud of that.
A lot of discussion lately about offshore wind. Are you guys going to get involved in offshore?
Not immediately. There's some other, we have some other companies that we're involved with a bit, but we're really focused on the near term, which is meeting our goals onshore. We've got to do it because I view it as basically a bridge to get to offshore, and mostly I think when we think about growing the skills and growing the ability to problem solve around integrating, getting green technology integrated into our kind of old transmission system. We've got a lot of challenges that we face.
I think we have transmission problems onshore.
Right.
Wow.
Think about the challenges.
That's a major challenge.
So I view that as just sort of a quantum leap, and I think we have this current challenge today.
But surely in the corporate offices, you guys have sat around the table and talked about, okay, what's the mix going to be in the long term? How do you think that's going to work out? If wind energy is a major part of our alternative energy future, how's it going to mix out in terms of onshore versus offshore for New England?
Right.
Let's just focus on New England.
I think it's clear that offshore is going to be a significant contribution long term.
More or long?
And I'm not sure about the mix. Okay. I think that it's likely to be larger offshore, and I think that's
Why?
a good. Well, I think you can do more offshore. You've certainly got the real estate, and I think we are constrained by some of the siting factors that you talk about onshore, but. I do think that mix is probably lots of people will give you lots of different answers.
But that technology is yet to be fully proven.
That's right. That's right.
We were talking about the group about that, and it's like you got to plan for the perfect storm. It's just out there, and will those floating platforms will they really work, etc.
Right.
Speaking of planning and big winds, I want to ask you about Rumford.
Sure.
The Black Mountain project in Rumford, too windy.
Yeah.
Who'd thunk it?
Well, it's
how can there ever not be too much wind? That's a good thing, right?
Right. Too windy is kind of maybe a simplified way of thinking about it.
Tell me about that.
So it's pretty complicated.
Some decisions from the research on that. Talk about that for a minute.
Yeah. So when we're planning projects, we do a lot of data gathering on wind power, wind resources, and that's obviously our fuel. So we have to understand it, and we need to make darn sure that we get it right before we go forward with a project. So in that case, we've found that it's an extraordinarily complicated site due to terrain and steepness. So the Western Mountains are very steep and can be complicated to study. So I think it's a good case study that it's not always as simple as some might have you believe.
How long did you spend? How long have you been involved in that concept on that particular site?
I think we've been testing since 2006.
Okay.
2006.
I have to ask, what's the community reaction been? I mean,
well, most recently it's been a little mixed because I think we haven't had much to talk about. We've just been studying the project.
So. And now that you do have something to talk about, it's not exactly maybe what they wanted to hear.
Maybe. So we'll continue to work on that and sort it out. But it's part of that conversation with the community that happens early.
And I want to end with that, conversations with the community. Talk about that. I mean, obviously you've got a lot of experience already in dealing with communities, the environmental issues, the birds and the bats and the sound and the aesthetics. Of all those things, what are the biggest issues that you have to deal with at the community level?
Well, I think in the broader.
What's most important to them?
Yeah, in the broader permitting framework, what we hear the most about is the aesthetics issue. That's the one that we all can disagree on, but I can do very little about. Most of the other issues we can sort of problem solve. But it's tough to hide a turbine. So. But I think what people really want, my sense is what people really want is they want to understand the costs and benefits of the projects. So that's been a learning experience for us, and I can say that I'm coachable in that regard, and we've gotten a lot of good feedback from the communities about what people want to hear more about, and so it's sort of the trade-offs, right? It's I have to see these turbines, but what benefits am I getting? That's a reasonable question. And
if the turbines are in their backyard and it's generating power, but that power is going to the grid, it's not going directly to them necessarily. And so it's that cost savings that may eventually be spread among everyone. So, so that's not necessarily the selling point.
Well, and that's so we do hear that, and I think one of the things that's addressing that is the long-term contracting legislation, which was a great move, and I think will ultimately translate into contracts that deliver benefits to Maine ratepayers. Now that, I think when you hold that in one hand and sort of the other issues on the other,
that'll make your job a lot easier.
I think it's helpful.
I mean, it absolutely will in terms of making that benefit immediate and direct to Maine ratepayers. It makes sense. So that's good. Okay, we're going to leave it there. I appreciate you coming.
Thank you very much.
That's great. Good luck with Stetson too.
Thank you.
All right, terrific. Thanks.
Take care.